My boyfriend used to call me his peace. His friends loved saying I calmed him down. His mother told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. But the night I finally fell apart, just asked him to hold me, he rolled over and slept. The next morning, I packed in silence. My best friend waited outside. His sister called me that afternoon, crying, and what I did next. Let's just say he's not the only one who regrets letting go. The restaurant was loud. Not chaotic, just the kind of full that made it hard to think straight. Glasses clinking, forks scraping plates, someone laughing a little too hard at the far end of the table. Leona sat between two of his friends, half listening to a story she'd already heard twice. Across the table, Jordan threw an arm around Malik's shoulders. I swear, man used to come out with us all angry and ready to fight somebody. Now he's practically zen. The whole table laughed. Facts, Malik said. You remember when he punched that parking meter in DC? Almost broke his wrist. Couldn't hold a fork for 2 days. More laughter. Then Jordan raised his glass in Leona's direction. You did that. He's a new man since you showed up. She smiled, not a big one, just enough to pass. Just enough to make them believe she agreed. Someone to her left added, he's always talking about you too. All Leona said this, or Leona thinks that. You've got him thinking deeper now. Then came the phrase she'd come to resent, without knowing when the shift happened. You're his piece, you know that, right? The way it was said, not softly, not personally, just tossed into the air like a compliment they'd used before. As if she were a calming product they all shared ownership of. He didn't say anything to her, just grinned, pulled her closer with a hand on her knee. He kissed the top of her head like punctuation. Leona held the smile, took a sip of water, tuned back into the conversation. They joked about old fights, recapped a story she'd heard him downplay twice already, the one where he lost his job after cursing out a supervisor. The one he told better when no one else was watching. And every few minutes, someone brought it back to her. She keeps you grounded, huh? She really leveled you out. Leona's like therapy, but pretty. She laughed when she was supposed to, squeezed his hand when he reached for hers under the table. But inside, something quiet and sharp twisted deeper. Because no one at that table knew her favorite color. No one asked about the new residency she applied for. No one remembered she was an artist, not just his calm. They loved how she fixed him. They never noticed she was fading in the process. It happened in the kitchen, during one of those long holiday weekends where nothing ever seemed to move fast. His mother stood near the sink, drying a dish with slow, methodical care. The light above her flickered once, then steadied. Leona was rinsing out mugs, her sleeves pushed up, water running too warm. You know, his mother started, not turning around. He's rough around the edges. Leona didn't answer. The towel in her hand paused mid-wipe. Always has been, even as a kid. Loud fast, always breaking something. She turned then, eyes soft in a way that didn't match the weight of the words. But with you, he breathed softer. It was meant as a compliment. Leona could feel that the earnestness, the fragile attempt to say thank you without saying it out loud. Still, it landed wrong. She dried her hands and nodded. He's trying. His mother smiled. Because of you. There it was again, the praise with strings attached. Not for who she was, for what she did to him. The way she sanded him down. The way she steadied the storm. You're the best thing that's ever happened to him, she added, setting the dish down gently. I hope you know that. Leona nodded again. She didn't say that it didn't always feel that way. She didn't say that being the best thing for someone often meant being the only soft place they let themselves fall over and over, without ever catching her in return. She rinsed the mugs and placed them on the drying rack. Behind her, his mother started humming. Something old. Gospel, maybe. And Leona just stood there for a moment longer, staring at the chipped edge of the ceramic. It was her favorite mug, the one he'd dropped a month ago, barely apologized for. She had glued it back together herself, just like everything else. Sade was draped across the couch like always, one sock on, one sock missing, a bowl of grapes balanced on her stomach. She didn't need to say anything right away. Just watched as Leona folded another one of his shirts and set it neatly in the drawer. You really iron his socks? Sade asked, chewing slowly. They look better that way, Leona said without turning. Sade popped another grape, then let the silence stretch a little longer before speaking again. You ever get tired? Leona blinked, still folding. Of what? Of pouring, of holding the whole thing up. Sade sat up now, elbows on knees. You give so much to him, what does he give back? Leona paused just for a second, long enough that it counted. He's been better, she said finally. He's trying. Sade tilted her head. Better than what? The question sat heavy between them. I mean, he doesn't yell anymore, Leona offered. He listens more, sort of. Sade didn't argue, she just nodded once slowly. I'm not judging, she said. I'm just watching. And it looks like you've been picking up pieces for a while. Leona pressed a hand against the folded stack in the drawer. I'm fine. You always say that, Sade replied. But I know the version of you that used to paint all night. That danced in the grocery store aisle. That made a whole meal just because the tomatoes looked good. Leona looked over her shoulder just briefly. And now, Sade said quietly, you iron socks. The drawer clicked shut. Sade didn't push further. She just leaned back on the couch again and said, let me know when you're ready to talk about what you don't say out loud. Leona didn't answer, she just picked up another shirt and kept folding. They were parked outside her apartment, headlights off, the quiet hum of the engine filling the silence between them. Rain ticked lightly against the windshield, not enough to move the wipers, just enough to fill the space he refused to. Leona sat with her hands in her lap, eyes on the dashboard clock. They'd argued earlier over something small, a missed call, a rescheduled plan, a tone in his voice she didn't like and said so. He brushed it off. Said she was being sensitive. Now he stared out the window, his jaw set, his arms crossed like her hurt was some sort of inconvenience. I just needed today to feel normal, she said quietly. He didn't respond. I didn't need you to fix anything, she added, her voice cracking just slightly. I just needed you to, I don't know, see me. He sighed and rubbed his face. Leona, not tonight, please. She turned to him then. Not tonight. I'm tired, he said. I've got stuff in the morning. I don't have the energy for this right now. She blinked slowly. For this. You know what I mean, he muttered, shifting in his seat. She did too well. It wasn't the first time she'd been dismissed like this. Her emotions reduced to a bad mood, a timing issue, a problem for future him to maybe deal with if she didn't make too much noise about it. Leona stared out the window again, watching the rain streak down. Can you just hold me? She asked. Her voice was so soft she wasn't sure he even heard it. But he did. And he didn't move, didn't reach for her, didn't even look her way. He adjusted the seat back a little, rubbed his temple, mumbled something about being exhausted. Leona turned her face toward the window again, not to hide the tears, but to let them fall in peace. They didn't speak on the walk-in. He unlocked the door, dropped his keys on the table, and headed straight for the bedroom. She followed behind him in silence, shoes in her hand, coat still on. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't check if she needed anything. He just pulled off his shirt, climbed into bed, and turned away from her, the same shoulder she always saw when something didn't go his way. The same one she used to press her face into while pretending the distance was just a phase. Leona stood in the doorway for a moment, then she sat on the edge of the mattress. She didn't cry this time. She didn't speak. She didn't even move to undress. She just sat there, fully clothed, watching the steady rise and fall of his back as he drifted into sleep. Like there hadn't been a plea in her voice in the car, like he hadn't left her in the dark on a night she desperately needed light. The silence was thick, not soft, not healing, just hollow. She lay down eventually, her back to his, inches of space between them that felt like an ocean. And in that silence, she finally understood this wasn't just about the night. It was about every night. Every night she held it together while he unraveled. Every moment she swallowed words so he wouldn't shut down. Every time she wrapped herself around his chaos, hoping it would make him feel safe enough to do the same for her. But when she broke, even just a little, he rolled away. She stared at the ceiling for hours. And the silence? It said more than he ever had. She woke before the sun. The sky outside was still navy, the kind of dark that made the world feel paused. He was still asleep, mouth slightly open, one hand tucked beneath the pillow like he'd been resting through a peaceful night. She moved quietly. No slamming drawers. No dramatic shoving of clothes into a suitcase. 3 shirts. 2 pairs of shoes. Sketchbooks, chargers. A hoodie she'd bought for herself that he always stole. Her movements were precise, not rushed, not bitter. She zipped the bag slowly, glancing once at the wall clock. 5:17 am. She stepped into the bathroom and stared at her reflection for a beat too long. Not because she didn't recognize herself, but because, for the first time in months, she did. No makeup, no forced calm, no woman holding everything up for someone else, just Leona. She flicked off the bathroom light. Back in the bedroom, she stood by the door for a moment longer. He shifted slightly in his sleep. Exhaled, settled deeper into the mattress. She didn't say goodbye, didn't leave a note, didn't touch him. There was nothing left to explain. Everything that mattered had already been ignored. She walked out of the room with her bag in one hand and her piece in the other. Said was already waiting downstairs. Car idling, hoodie zipped halfway up, one hand tapping lightly on the steering wheel to whatever quiet song was playing through the speakers. Leona slid into the passenger seat without a word. Said looked over, eyes scanning her face, then the bag in the backseat. She didn't ask anything at first. Just reached over, turned down the music, and pulled away from the curb. A few blocks passed in silence. "You forget anything?" Said asked, eyes still on the road. Leona shook her head. "No." Another pause. "Everything I forgot," she said finally, "is upstairs." Said glanced at her, then back at the road. "Want me to go back?" Leona gave the smallest smile. Not even a little. They drove a while longer before Said spoke again. "You hungry?" "No." "Tired?" Leona nodded. Said turned on the seat warmer. "I got you for the next few days, or weeks, or months, whatever you need." Leona looked out the window, watching the city wake up. "I just need space," she said. "You got that." They drove on in silence, not the heavy kind, not the kind filled with words unsaid. This silence didn't press. It didn't demand. It just sat with her. And that, for the first time in a long time, was exactly enough. The first call came at noon. Said's phone buzzed on the nightstand, screen flashing with a name that made Leona's chest tighten for just a moment. Kemi, she let it ring once. Twice. Then she picked it up and stepped outside. Leona stayed on the bed, staring at the ceiling, hands folded over her stomach like she was anchoring herself in place. The voices outside were low, muffled. Calm at first. A few minutes later, Said stepped back in. "She wants to talk to you." Leona didn't move. What'd she say? Said held out the phone. On the other end, Kemi's voice was already shaking. "He just called me," she said. "He woke up and thought you were in the shower. Said your bag was gone, but he figured maybe you were mad about last night and needed space." Leona said nothing. "He thought you were joking, Leona. He didn't think you'd actually." Her voice broke. "You didn't even tell him." Leona stayed quiet. Kemi wasn't angry, that much was clear. But her voice carried something else, not judgment, not confusion. Grief, maybe, or regret. The kind that came too late to fix anything. "I'm not calling to ask you to go back," Kemi said finally. I've never heard him like this. He's pacing, crying, saying your name like it's the only word he remembers." Still, Leona didn't speak. Because she remembered the sound of her own voice the night before, quiet, cracked, asking for nothing more than to be held. And he'd rolled over like she hadn't spoken at all. Kemi tried again later that afternoon. This time, her voice was steadier, like she'd had time to rehearse. "He says you left over one bad night," she said. Leona didn't respond right away. "He thinks you overreacted, that it wasn't serious, that you just needed to cool off." "I did leave over one night," Leona said, voice even. Kemi hesitated. "Oh, one night where I broke," Leona continued, "and he chose sleep." "I know he's not great with emotions," Kemi offered gently. "He's clumsy, distant, but he didn't think it was this deep." Leona looked out the window. It wasn't about being deep. Then what was it? "It was about being alone," she said. "Every night, every conversation, every time I needed to be more than the person keeping him steady." Kemi exhaled softly. "I kept it together while he fell apart," Leona added. "For a year, and the first time I let myself be soft, he shut down." There was a long pause. "I didn't want to choose myself like this," Leona said, "but I did. And I'm not sorry." Kemi's voice dropped. "He misses you." "I know. He's hurting." Leona nodded, even though Kemi couldn't see her. "So was I." And this time, she didn't apologize for that either. The bar was dim, low music pulsing under layers of quiet conversation. His friends were spread out across a corner booth, drinks half finished, expressions tight with confusion they hadn't sorted into words yet. She left, Marco asked, eyes wide. For real. She packed and bounced, Jamal said, shaking his head. Didn't even say anything, just gone. Nah, someone else muttered. She wouldn't leave like that, not her. There was silence, the kind that comes after denial but before truth. She loved that man, Marco said, reaching for his glass. She was always showing up for him, who just walks out without saying a word. You ever ask her how she was doing? One of them said. It was the quiet one, did ye, who usually just listened. Now his voice cut through. Or did y'all just keep thanking her for keeping him sane? Jamal looked up. What? You ever ask her what she needed? Did you repeated? I didn't. I just kept watching her carry it. Figured she was solid. Figured she could take it. She could, Marco said. She did. Yeah, Digi nodded, until she couldn't. Another beat of silence, then, maybe we only noticed him calming down because she was holding everything. Nobody disagreed. They just stared into their drinks, finally starting to realize that peace isn't always proof someone's okay. Sometimes it's just what they give right before they leave. Sade tossed her phone onto the couch like it burned. He's been calling all day, she said. Voicemail after voicemail. Leona didn't look up. He said he's willing to talk now. Still no response. Sade crossed her arms. Willing, like your hurt was a negotiation. Leona sat on the floor by the window. Sketchpad open, pencil hovering above a blank page she hadn't touched in an hour. She wasn't avoiding the calls, she just didn't see the point in reacting to echoes. He even texted me, Sade added. Said he just wants to clear the air. Leona adjusted the angle of the pad, erased a line that wasn't even there. Sade sat down beside her. You're not quiet because you don't care. You're quiet because he doesn't get to have your words anymore. Leona didn't nod, didn't smile, she just kept drawing. The silence between them wasn't avoidance. It was decision. The calls kept coming, but she didn't owe answers to someone who only wanted to listen now that she'd stopped speaking. Her sister was already waiting on the front porch when Leona stepped outside. Brielle didn't say hi. She just held up her phone. Their mom called me. Leona raised an eyebrow. Said he's sulking, that he's been telling people you snapped out of nowhere. Leona didn't flinch, Brielle scoffed, snapped. Girl, if anything, you bent for 2 years and finally stopped folding. They sat side by side on the steps, the sun warm against their backs. She said you owe him a conversation, Brielle added. Can you believe that? Leona rested her chin on her hand. I don't owe him a thing. Brielle looked over. You carried him. Leona didn't argue. Every meltdown, every silent treatment, every time he needed space, you gave it. Every time you needed space, he shut down. I know. You gave him peace, Brielle said, and he treated it like furniture. Leona smiled, small, sad, honest. I think he just liked that I made everything quiet, she said. He never once asked what the silence cost me. Brielle leaned her head on her shoulder. Let him sulk, she murmured. He can sit in the silence you left behind. ChatGPT said. The voicemail came that night. Leona was sitting at the kitchen table, sketching lines she knew she'd erase, when her phone buzzed with a notification. One new message. The transcription preview showed the first line. I just wish you had told us. She pressed play and set the phone on speaker. His mother's voice came through, low and uneven. Leona, I didn't know, none of us did, I thought everything was fine. He said you left without warning. A long pause, a sharp inhale. You should have told us, we would have helped. The message ended. Sade didn't look up from her spot on the couch. Brielle blinked once and kept sipping her tea. No one reached for the phone. No one said anything. Because there was nothing left to respond to. Help wasn't help if it came only after the break. Support wasn't support if it showed up after the last bag was zipped. And Leona, she'd already found her people. The ones who didn't ask for explanations wrapped in politeness. The ones who sat with her in silence and didn't demand access to her pain to believe it was real. The phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This time, she didn't bother pressing play. Kemi's voice came through the speaker again, soft this time, almost hesitant. I know you're done, she said, and I'm not asking you to go back, a pause. He's really not okay. Leona leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching the steam rise from her tea. I'm not saying you owe him, Kemi continued, but maybe just let him explain. You meant something to him. You still do. Said looked up from the couch. Don't. Leona didn't move. Kemi kept going. He's not eating, he's not sleeping, he keeps replaying everything, says he didn't know it was that bad. Leona finally spoke. He explained everything the night he rolled away. Kemi was quiet on the other end. That was his answer, Leona said. When I was breaking, he chose sleep. That's not a misunderstanding, that's a decision. Kemi sighed. I just thought maybe. I know, Leona said, but maybe isn't enough anymore. She hung up gently. No anger, no dramatics, just clarity. She poured her tea, sat down, and let the message sit there unread and unnecessary. Said stirred her tea with the tip of a spoon, not rushing, not looking up. This is the first time he's ever faced consequences, she said. Leona sat nearby, legs tucked under her, sketchpad open but untouched. The room was warm, still, safe in a way that didn't ask her to earn it. He's used to women folding, Said added. Used to them carrying the weight while he calls it balance. Leona didn't reply. He lost the only person who ever stayed long enough to clean up after him, Said said. That kind of loss doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in. Slow, loudest when no one's around to quiet it. She finally looked up. You didn't just leave him. You left the version of him that only ever grew because you kept shrinking. Leona set the sketchpad aside. He didn't even realize what I was holding, she said. Exactly. Said sipped her tea. And now, she added, he gets to meet himself without the mirror you kept polishing for him. Leona didn't smile, but something in her eyes steadied. Not revenge, not relief, just the beginning of release. Brielle burst through the apartment door without knocking, her laptop still open in her hands. They picked you, she said, breathless. The residency, the panel just sent the offer. They want you for the full 6 weeks. All expenses covered, studio included. Leona blinked. For a moment, it didn't land. Then she took the laptop, read the subject line, read it again. We are thrilled to offer you a placement in the Artist in Motion residency. Said stood slowly from the couch, one hand over her mouth. Wait, this is the one in Barcelona, right? Leona nodded, Brielle grinned. You were top of the shortlist. The coordinator even left a note. Said your portfolio felt like clarity. Leona sat down at the table, staring at the screen. Said crouched beside her. You did this, not us, not him. You. Brielle wrapped her arms around both of them. They see you now, no more background, no more carrying people on your back. For a long minute, no one said anything else. Just quiet breathing, arms tangled together, and the heavy, quiet joy of being chosen, not for being strong, not for being someone's piece, but for being. Leona reached for her sketchbook. Finally flipped to a new page. They sat on the balcony that night, city lights blinking in the distance, a soft breeze curling around them like a blanket. Leona scrolled through the residency email again, dates, itinerary, stipend. All real, all hers. Said leaned her head on Leona's shoulder, wine glass in hand. You didn't just leave him, she said quietly. Leona didn't respond right away. You left the version of you that thought you needed to be small to be loved. That landed. Not with a jolt, not with tears, just quiet truth. Said continued, you stayed long enough to fix him, soften him, teach him calm, and you thought that was love. But what you really wanted. She tapped her glass gently against the railing. Someone who would hold you when you broke, not make you feel broken for needing to. Leona nodded once, soft, solid. I kept showing up for him, she said. But I stopped showing up for myself. Said looked at her, not anymore. The wind tugged gently at Leona's curls. She looked down at her hands, palms open, still steady, still hers. The final message arrived on a Tuesday. She saw it when she picked up her phone to check the residency flight details. His name was there, the last thread. No missed calls, just one long message. The preview alone said enough. I miss the way you made me feel human. She didn't tap it, didn't open it. She read the rest from the lock screen as it kept unspooling. I didn't know how much I needed you until you left. Everything's quiet now, too quiet. I miss your laugh. I miss how you used to wait for me to come around, even when I didn't deserve it. I didn't know how to be held without you showing me. She let the screen dim, Didn't delete it, didn't respond, not out of spite. Not even out of pride, just peace. Because every word he sent was still about what she made him feel, not what he ever gave her. And that silence, the one he used to fill with neglect, now belonged to her. She put the phone back on the table, flipped open her sketchbook, and filled the page with color. Brielle zipped the final corner of the suitcase and leaned against it with both hands. You gonna block him? Leona folded a scarf and tucked it gently into the side pocket. No. Brielle raised an eyebrow. No. Leona smiled faintly. No need. She stood, brushed her hands together, and looked out the window. The city stretched beyond the glass, wide and humming, like it was waiting. He won't get that version of me again anyway, she said. Brielle sat on the edge of the bed. You're not worried he'll keep trying. Leona shook her head. He's not chasing me, he's chasing the calm he lost. But that wasn't his, it was mine, and I just took it back. There was no bitterness in her tone, just clarity, just choice. Brielle grabbed the boarding pass from the nightstand and slid it into Leona's carry-on. You know you could have dragged him, exposed him, said everything out loud. I didn't need to. Why not? Leona turned to her. Because healing louder than the harm is the best reply. Brielle exhaled, okay, poet. They laughed, not the quiet, careful laugh she'd learned in that relationship, but a full one, the kind that made space, the kind that carried forward. She's not the same. Marco said it to Kemi weeks later, outside a mutual friend's birthday dinner. He sounded unsure, like he wasn't entirely convinced it was her he'd seen walking out of the gallery across the street. Kemi didn't flinch. She's not supposed to be. He rubbed the back of his neck. I mean, she smiled at me, but it was like I wasn't in the room anymore. You weren't, Kemi said. He stared at the sidewalk. She used to ask about us, always made sure we felt included, you remember. Kemi nodded. She'd refill drinks, bring plates. She even remembered Malik's mom's birthday. That girl, she really loved all of us. No, Kemi corrected. She loved him, and she made space for all of us because he never knew how. Marco went quiet. Kemi crossed her arms. Peace isn't just presence, Marco, it's partnership. And none of us gave her that. He glanced back at the gallery window. Inside, Leona was laughing, hair up, head back, no shadows behind her. Still, he said, almost to himself, it's wild seeing her like that. Kemi didn't look away. Peace was never meant to stay where it wasn't protected, she said. And Leona, she finally learned how to protect herself. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.